Bruchim Abayim, welcome everyone. We are continuing Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim and Siman Dalit, the Hilchot Shabbat, and we are up to Seif Hey, Daf Hey Amud Bet of the regular prince of Mishna Berura. And Shulchan Aruch brings a psak that Rambam paskins in Hilchot Shabbat that im sachar inu Yehudi leshana or leshtayim. If you hired a non-Jew, a Gentile, for a year or for 2 years, sheichtov lo or sheyerog lo beged. They should be your scribe to write. Sometimes back then, before the copy machines, he wanted a book. You had to have somebody write the book, copying the source. So you have a Eno Yehudi that you have hired on a year basis, 2 years basis, and he is writing, or he is making garments, is sewing, he's a seams dresser. If he wants to choose to write on Shabbat, if he wants to choose to sew on Shabbat, he could do that, it's no problem. That would be equivalent of you telling him, well, copy this book for me, write it, and I'll pay you X amount of dollars. That is a kavdanut, that is a contract job that does not require him necessarily to write on Shabbat or any Yamim Tovim. He could write whenever he wants. He could get up 2 o'clock a.m., at his convenience, and therefore when he chooses to do on Shabbat, that's exactly what it is. He chooses to do on Shabbat for his own comfort level, and you're off the hook. There's no problem with it. So he could do whenever he wants, however he wants. Vehu, says the Shulchan Aruch, that's only given that you're not giving him per day. It's not that you say, well, I want you to finish this book and I'll pay you $100 a day. Any day that you want. Even though that you didn't tell him to work on Shabbat, if you're paying him per day, then every Shabbat that he works, you're paying for Shabbat, and that becomes a problem. Additionally to that, he should not be working on the premises of the Jew. If he's sitting in your house writing, and he's writing for you, it will be a problem. So therefore, he should not be doing that as well. So there's 2 different conditions of how he's hired, and also the fact that he's not doing it in the Jewish house. And there are those who are stringent. This is Mefarshei Rambam, Harav Magid, on Rambam, in the name of the Rashba, he writes that even this yearly contract is a problem. Says the Ramah, that's only when you have hired him for a very specific job. If you hired him for a year to write a book or to sew up garments for you, which is a very specific job, then it will be a problem. If you have hired him for a year for anything that you want, right, then it will be even a problem according to the Rambam, the first shita that Shulchan Aruch brings. So really depends, you see, how the wording of the hire has been done, and it makes all the difference in the consequences. So says the Mishnah Berura, Katav Magen Avraham, Kavanat Rambam, Kederech Hasarim Shesh Lahem Sofer Miyuchad or Chayat Miyuchad. This is like the fancy people, the upper echelon of the community, that they have a Sofer Miyuchad, they have a specific scribe or a specific seams dresser, that any time that you need something to be written, he is obligated to drop whatever he has and come write for you. He's hired. And when you don't need him, he's sitting doing nothing because he's on full salary. Therefore it's mutar for him to do on Shabbat because he could choose when to do the job the way he wants it. The Jew is not telling him to do on Shabbat. If he wants, he could choose to do it on Sunday. And additionally, you have no benefit from him doing it on Shabbat. If you hired him to work the entire time this year, whether it is writing or creating garments, asur afal Rambam. That, according to Rambam, even is going to be a problem if he's doing on Shabbat, because you hired him for full time to do the whole time. Even though that you technically are not going to be very specific on a certain day, you're not going to be very exacting with him, but nevertheless, you want him to work every day, and then Shabbat is going to become a problem. You're going to be benefiting from the fact that he's working 7 days a week, not 6. Taz holds that even this is going to be kavlanut. So if, according to Rambam, even if you are specific on every day, it's going to be a problem. But says the Taz, if you're not specific on any of the days, you want him to work as much as possible. But if he chooses to take off every Shabbat, you're not going to be really specific. Therefore, it will be mutar still. If you're going to be very specific, that you don't want him to be sitting doing nothing, that will be, according to everyone, a problem. Because that is equivalent of telling him to do on Shabbat. Even though that you don't technically tell him to do on Shabbat, but you're makpid, why did he sit and do nothing? And therefore he gets the picture. He's a good worker, he's smart. So he understands that if I don't do it, I'm in trouble. I'm going to be replaced probably by somebody else. And therefore, it's going to be an issue. Even though that he could, technically speaking, sit and work at night and finish the job, it's basically like directly telling him to work on Shabbat, and it will be a problem. Now, says the Mishna Berura, the second condition is that he cannot be in the Jewish house. Even a full-fledged kavlanut is going to be asur if he's doing it in your house, because remember, there are two problems. There's a problem of technical chilul Shabbat, that if you are hiring someone to work for you on Shabbat is a problem. Mikar adin is a problem. And then you have another issue. The other issue is when you have marit ayin. That means you're not necessarily asking the person to do on Shabbat, but it looks like you're asking him to do on Shabbat, even though that you didn't. And him working on Shabbat in your house, even though that you hired him in a proper way, still will be a problem. So it says, Yehuda, you want to take it over? He doesn't know where it is. No. Him. Yeah. So v'yesh mi she'osir, and there are those who say it's asur. Says the Mishnah Berura, hu da'at ha'rabad. It's the shita of the Rabbad who disagrees with this whole thing. Ve'hineh le'da'at ha'taz nicha b'pshitut tam ha'rabad. According to Taz, it's pashut what the Rabbad is saying. The svira leh, the af she'eno makpid al bitul mikol makom, harei ha'Yisrael marviach al yado. That even though that you are not specific what time he does and what time he doesn't, but at the end of the day, the Jew is benefiting from his work that he's doing on Shabbat, and therefore it will be a problem. The Svira le'Rabad, the Yisrael marviach b'ma she'oseh b'Shabbat, the Shema yistarech gam lemachar lichtov v'lo yuchal la'asot shnehem ke'echad. Because imagine what happens if he's doing on Shabbat. I didn't tell him to do on Shabbat, but tomorrow I may need him to copy something, And therefore, I am very happy that he's doing on Shabbat right now what he has to do with the chores, because then on the 6 days that I can tell him what to do, I have him available at any moment. Whereas if he doesn't work on Shabbat, and I want him to do this project, and then on a Sunday I want him to do something emergency, to copy something, and I tell him to do it, he says, well, I'm writing the project, the yearly project, I'm busy with the yearly project. So therefore, if he only works 6 days out of 7, right, you have 50, whatever, depending on the year, 50 some odd weeks, days that he cannot be working. That's a lot of days. And therefore, he's going to be less available during the course of the Yemei Chol, when I want to command him to do something and I want to have him available. So says the Rabbad, therefore you're very happy that he's working on Shabbat. And that being happy does make a difference. It's not just like a little small project that I give to someone to do and I really don't care when they do it. Here, I do care if he works on Shabbat, because that's 50 some days more for me available during the year that I could tell him to do stuff. And therefore, the Rabbad is mahmir. Now this, of course, gets into the regular machloket that we have. We have mentioned this many times in how to understand Shulchan Aruch's assertion of different shitot, that in one, the way Chacham Obadia and many others view it, when Maran brings a Yesh Omrim, he's just trying to give him respect, not necessarily the halacha should be changed by that shita that Maran Shulchan Aruch brings. On the other hand, there are those who, like Kaf HaChaim, that say, no, Maran never brings something that he does not mean to say. It's not just to give that shita kavod, but rather, he's coming to tell you what he wants you to do. So here, according to them, when Shulchan Aruch is saying there are those who are machmir, he wants you to lachatchila be machmir. But if you can't, so then you have what to rely on, because Ikar Adin is like the Rambam to be mekel. Whereas according to Aravadia, there's nothing to reckon with the shita of Rabbad. Maran does not paskin like Rabbad, and therefore you don't have to be at all concerned with it. So says the Shulchan Aruch, the last piece that the Shulchan Aruch discuss, that the Ramah brings, that's only when you have hired him for one specific job, that you have the heter of the Rambam. But if you have hired him for any job that you may have for him to do, he's like your assistant. He does whatever you want him to do. So says the Shulchan Aruch, says the Ramah, in that case, that he's like a general concierge, that you ask him and he has to assist with whatever you need, then according to everyone is going to be asur. Why? If you have a hired maid, a hired servant, that their job is to do whatever you want, right? And they come, even though that it's a yearly job, you gave them a job per year, and they would be there from morning to night doing anything that the household needs. It will become a problem if they do a job that's asur on Shabbat. Even if they do it in their own domain without the Jew telling them, it's a problem. They are hired for any job that the Jew has. If they're doing it in your house, even if you have hired them for a specific job, then it's going to be asur in the Jewish house if they're doing it in that domain, and as we explained before. Now the Taz explains in the name of Rabbeinu Simcha, דהוא אוסר להשפחה אפילו לעשות מלאכת עצמה בבית בעליה. Rabbeinu Simcha, it goes one step further. It says the shifcha, the non-Jewish maid, cannot even do her own work if she's doing it in your home. Why? The reason is because if they see that she's cooking on Shabbat, Nah, she's cooking for herself. But people don't know that she's cooking for herself. And cooking on Shabbat is a big deal. It's like if someone sees the shivcha juicing stuff and cooking stuff and sewing, and they say that the goy has told him to do it. The Jew rather has told the goy to do it, and therefore that will become a serious issue of marit ayin, and therefore the Tas says, Rabbeinu Simcha holds, it's asur to even let a goy do her own job in your house. V'hali Rabbah, hevi b'shem sefer ha-teruma, temerechet atzma mutar. There are others who disagree, say no, melechet atzmo, the goy could do their own job in the house of the Jew, and the Pri Megadim basically tries to explain this